AKA Patters, welcome back to Sunday Presentation. Peter A. DeLuca here. I am your host. I'm going to usher you into things that I absolutely love. And today is Armageddon. No, it's not the end of the world. But for many, Armageddon was the end of cinema. For me, it was an eye-opening experience that I still go through today. I watch Armageddon on a regular basis. It's one of my favorite movies, it's one of the most expensive movies, and is one of the most greatest feats of a young director. That's right, we're all about Michael Bay. We're Team Michael Bay. Let's go, Armageddon. And we're back. Welcome back, my AKA Patters. Peter A. DeLuca here, coming to you from Philadelphia, PA, and known throughout the universe, the multiverse, the Wildstorm universe, the Top Cow universe, the Extreme universe, known as the Eclectic One. People, on Sundays, if you're new here, if you're just chiming in, I like just to bring you guys oddities, things within veins and cracks and crevices that I just absolutely love, that I absolutely get into. And recently, while I've been at the drawing table, I've just been rerunning these making of Armageddon specials that I found on YouTube. So guess what? I put them together. I'm giving them to you so we can all just enjoy them. Now, remember Armageddon, one time the most expensive movie ever made. We have a young director. We also have a cast that's full of independent actors. A lot of the people featured in Armageddon was their prime time slot, even including Bruce Willis. I know a lot of people attribute Bruce Willis's rise to Pulp Fiction or Sixth Sense. Armageddon was a part of that rise. I know about Die Hard, but he really hit the stratosphere when he started Armageddon, and underneath of him is the greatest collection of independent actors that we ever had and still ever have at that time, or this time. But people, hang out with me. Hopefully I can help open your eyes to how great and magnificent of a movie this is. I know a lot of you already are coming in with some heat. You already hate this movie. I view Armageddon and Independence Day and Godzilla, the Matthew Broderick Godzilla, as a time where the critics, like young and old critics, really turned on the blockbuster and the Hollywood experience, to where, things like characterization, plot, three structure or three act plot, all of these things permeated what was popular to say. And a lot of film critics and YouTubers and Twitterers haven't let go of these concepts either. And Armageddon, the reverb from that, really crushed the perception that movies have to be fun. They should be fun, and it's okay if they're fun first, and let everything else trickle down from there. I view Armageddon as a visionary science fiction movie that went for the home run. It is like Barry Bonds. We're hitting all of them out of the park. And getting into my personal experience with the movie, I remember seeing the movie. I was young. I was young when I went to go see the theater, and people were crying leaving the theater with how that movie ended, with the death and the sacrifice of Harry, Bruce Willis. Just recently, I was watching this movie, and like I said, I regularly watch this movie because I love the soundtrack, I love the music, I love the design work, I even love the acting. It is just, again, a lot of fun. But the ending of this movie, still to this day, amazingly impactful. That final speech, and then we get the images of the marriage at the, it's just heartwarming stuff. And movies should, I think great movies should have an element of sacrifice in them. And along the way, it's educational. We get some great puns, some great jokes, great acting. And at the time, we're being introduced to a cast of actors that would later become the Hollywood standard. Armageddon is extremely important. People just gloss it over because you're supposed to hate the movie, and I will push back against anyone that comes against this movie. Armageddon is the definition of the AKAPAD army because we look at the material, we're serious about it, and we like to have fun. So everyone, let's go.
By outward appearance, she's the most serene of the planets, a cool blue cosmic gem, but forged by the Big Bang of creation. In that beginning was also born an asteroid aimed for Earth. Whoa! That's better. That's the trouble with asteroids. They raise such a racket. And that's not the worst of it. Hello, I'm Leonard Nimoy. Asteroids have been front page lately, especially the so-called Doomsday asteroid, the galactic bullet with our planet's name supposedly written on it. In the new feature film, Armageddon, a space mountain the size of Texas is on a crash course towards Earth.
What hit us?
Small asteroid fragments.
What kind of damage?
Total, sir. It's what we call a global killer. The end of mankind. Doesn't matter where it hits. Nothing would survive.
My God. What do we do?
Perhaps it's not if we'll be hit, but when. Tonight, we investigate the possibility of a doomsday asteroid. Will there be any warning?
The first we would know is when we saw the flash of light and felt the ground shake.
Have there been close calls?
The asteroid that I discovered, with only 4 days warning, there would have been no way to stop it.
Can the world fight back?
We have no operational capability to deal with an incoming object at this time.
Mission, the stars.
The asteroid could be heading towards us right now, and we'd have no idea.
Sights set for an asteroid whose target is Earth. I'm not on a sci-fi movie set, nor is that an alien landscape behind me. We're in the high Arizona desert, where a real visitor from outer space once landed. A small asteroid hit right here. The rock was only 150 feet wide, but look at that hole. Amazingly, 1,000 tons of solar debris hit the planet each day and night. Most smaller than grains of sand, but some the magnitude of a Mount Everest. Such an asteroid once thundered towards Earth. During the age of the dinosaurs. Firestorms raged across the planet. It was a global killer, incinerating 75% of all life. Doomsday. Not the first, not the last. But from its ashes, a new species would rise.
The flight has cleared his weather constraint and airgo, and that puts us fully ready to proceed.
Okay, stand by and MMP here.
The course of evolution jolted by a cosmic collision. Without that doomsday, the human race would not exist.
Of all of Florida at this moment, out the window.
How ironic. We, the children of an asteroid, are the first species possessing the power to save ourselves from another Armageddon.
Retro. Go. Righto. Go. Guys, go.
I'm in the firing room theater at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. It was from here at Cape Canaveral where our rendezvous with the stars began 3 decades ago, when man set foot upon a place whose only previous visitors had been asteroids.
Gentlemen, I can well imagine that a foreign planet must be a weird thing to see.
Bear witness to eons of asteroid hits. In fact, an asteroid blasted the moon from Earth as the planet was formed. So the man on the moon is literally a chip off the old block. Old Scarface. But for all the lunar dents, Mother Earth has suffered millions more. Vegetation and water camouflage the wounds. But strip away the makeup, and you'll see the damage left by asteroids. Like the one that hit our Atlantic coast long ago. Once a crater, now idyllic Chesapeake Bay near Baltimore. And this is Pittsburgh, as seen in a home video. Suddenly, in the sky, a mini asteroid. Thousands hit the atmosphere daily. Fortunately, most vaporize. But those that don't become meteorites. Like this one, seen all along the East Coast. It finally fell to Earth on Michelle Knapp's car in Westchester, New York.
I was sitting in my house watching TV, and next thing you know, I heard this loud noise. It sounded like a car accident.
The football-sized alien weighed in at about 27 pounds.
They told me the rock was estimated at 4 billion years old, which is about as old as the Earth itself.
Wethersfield, Connecticut is old, too. In fact, the decisive Battle of Yorktown was planned on the fields of Wethersfield by General George Washington himself. But it was just a few years ago when a really ancient traveler dropped in, right through the Donahue's roof.
It came through the ceiling of the living room. It bounced from there into the dining room.
And then rolled underneath the dining room table. And we looked up and saw this huge hole. We could see the stars. And
we just looked at each other and asked a very intelligent question. I asked Juan and she asked me, what happened?
What happened also happened a few blocks away. Amazingly, another meteor hit this Wethersfield home 10 years earlier. So what are the chances an asteroid will blast your home? We asked a man who knows the numbers, Dr. David Morrison of NASA's asteroid surveillance team.
You know, a lot of people play the odds at the track, but what about the odds that the Earth will be hit by a comet or asteroid with catastrophic consequences? Chances are about 1 in 5,000 that we will have a global catastrophe from an impact during your lifetime or your children's. Would you get on an airplane if the chances were 1 in 5,000 that it would crash?
There's heavy traffic in space, trillions of orbiting bodies, many in crash courses. In fact, Vehicle Earth has a better chance of a fatal collision in orbit than you do on the highway. Swarms of unidentified asteroids are lurking throughout the solar system.
How many asteroids are there out there that could devastate life on Earth? Probably about 1,000 larger than a mile in diameter.
It would take just one to wipe us out. And one almost did in 1996. It came out of nowhere. Take a peek at a real-life Armageddon. See it?
Asteroids look like hyphens on the films. They're little trails, and all the stars are points.
A little hyphen like that could spell the end of the world. And this one was accidentally discovered by a college student.
It was a shock. It was, jaw-dropping.
The next night, Tim shot it again, fearing the hyphen had grown.
The trails were longer on the films, and it was obvious the object was close because it had sped up a lot.
The giant asteroid was 4 days away.
That's way too short notice. Then it would have been quite messy had it hit.
The space rock was so mammoth, its impact would match the combined nuclear arsenal of the entire world.
So I waited for 12 hours, totally numb.
Most of the public knew nothing about it. On May 20th, 1996, Tim Sparr's asteroid slipped past Earth, missing by a whisker, as near as the moon.
Earth had a very close call with Doomsday, with almost no warning. Why? Because practically no one is watching. There are more people working in your average McDonald's than astronomers patrolling the heavens. That's why no one had ever seen an actual asteroid or comet hit a planet in our solar system. Until
March 23rd, 1993. We had all seen comets before, but never anything quite like that.
It was on a crash course with Jupiter. The historic sighting by Dr. Gene Shoemaker, his wife Carolyn, and David Levy, who remembers his friend saying,
I don't believe this. We are actually going to see an impact in my lifetime.
Target Jupiter. That smoke plume is the size of Earth.
I've often imagined what would have happened if Shoemaker-Levy 9 had collided with the Earth.
Perhaps an opening salvo, as in these scenes from Armageddon.
The first little guy, half a mile across, would have come barreling through the Earth's atmosphere, destroyed the ozone layer worldwide. If it were a land impact, you'd have the enormous amount of material raining down at ballistic speeds everywhere. No place would be forgiven from this. And those of us who are left to enjoy the scenery after that would be treated to a cloud of dust over the entire Earth. And that's something we call impact winter. It's a good possibility that the one with our name on it, the object that is going to strike the Earth, will be found by someone in his or her backyard using a telescope just like this.
Maybe a backyard astronomer like Carl in the movie Armageddon.
It looks like something's burning up there. Go get my phone book, will you? Get my phone book. Get those names of those guys from NASA.
Excuse me, am I wearing a sign that says Carl Slave? Go get my phone book!
The question isn't if it's going to happen, the question is when.
The most likely warning is 0. The first we'd know is when we saw the flash of light and felt the ground shake.
In the film, there's a little more warning.
We didn't see this thing coming?
Well, our object collision budget's $1 million. That allows us to track about 3% of the sky.
We have 18 days before it hits Earth.
OVCC, OTC. You can proceed.
This may be the front line of our defense against Armageddon. The launch pad at Cape Canaveral, where the space shuttle is poised to blast off to the stars. But what if a killer asteroid were heading this way, threatening Earth? Are we prepared to fight back? The surprising, even shocking answers in a moment.
If you're assuming that if there's an incoming object, somebody's going to get a call and say, don't worry, we'll take care of it. If you're assuming that that somebody's within the government, there's nobody to answer the phone.
At 40,000 miles an hour, just a small chunk from space blasted a mile-wide hole in the desert. Fortunately, that was 50,000 years ago. How often does an asteroid this size hit? Every 50,000 years. Give or take a millennium. If this had been Manhattan, it would have wiped out all of New York City. Like these scenes from the movie Armageddon. But how real is this? Take the Armadillo, an asteroid hot rod from the movie. Here near Meteor Crater, we got her up to highway speed.
I wanted something that was very cool, very unique. And we finally came up with this vehicle that was put on a Humvee chassis. It's like 22 feet long and 17 feet wide.
A wondrous figment of a filmmaker's imagination.
It was a prop that cost us about $1 million.
Actually inspired by NASA's micro rover, which will land on an asteroid in 2002.
Asteroids have been getting a lot of bad press. What some people don't understand is that there are extraordinary opportunities for mining asteroids in the next century.
Scientific pictures paint the prospect of a gold mine.
The mineral wealth on asteroids between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter is something like $20 billion for every man, woman, and child on the Earth's surface.
We struck off, baby! Based on that real NASA plan, the movie makers came up with a way to save the world.
We drill. We bring in the world's best deep core driller.
Who's Harry Stamper?
Hey, I'm Harry Stamper. Well, they asked him to save the world. They said, you're the only shot we have at going up and trying to stop this asteroid coming in. Just go up, land on the rock, drill the hole, put the bombs in, take off, detonate.
That's the plan.
He says he won't go unless he can take his his hand-picked crew, and they're not very good at a lot of other things in life, a lot of social graces, but good oil drillers and good hole drillers.
Armageddon is about a group of guys who are roughneck oil drillers who all of a sudden are called upon to be put in this absolutely extraordinary situation.
Come and get Papa Bear!
They're very everyday kind of folks. Well, it could easily be you or I or anybody.
The idea of drilling on an asteroid and sending these oil drillers up there is, everybody can relate to it because it's the common man.
The United States government just asked us to save the world.
You know me. Beat me up, Scotty.
The transportation business, that's what I love about sci-fi. Good science fiction takes you on a good ride because it's based on good science facts. Want to know how the military plans to defend the globe in case of an impending collision? Well, take a look at Plan A.
If today we were to discover an asteroid, about all we could do is try and launch a nuclear warhead on currently existing launch technology.
You should know that the president's scientific advisors are suggesting that a nuclear blast could change this asteroid's trajectory.
Would it do any good? Most likely not.
Hitting the rock from the outside won't do the job.
Imagine a firecracker in the palm of your hand. You set it off, what happens? You burn your hand, right? You close your fist around the same firecracker and set it off. Your wife's gonna be opening your ketchup bottles the rest of your life.
Is the sky falling your sci-fi?
The association that many people have with regard to asteroids, it's like the little aliens, the little green aliens. They're not real, we don't have to worry about it. This is very real.
I think authenticity is very important. I think you got to make, even though this is future fact, I think you got to make the facts that are real as they can be.
I actually stepped inside the Space Shuttle Columbia. That's one of the most incredible experiences of my life. Having that level of access to NASA was truly impressive.
You guys are real astronauts, huh?
Yeah. I found myself all of a sudden in the neutral buoyancy lab, simulating weightlessness, wearing an actual spacesuit. Bruce Willis and I were the only two non-astronauts ever to wear the suit. We were measured meticulously for them. I mean, they take the smallest measurements, like from, here to here, because that's a part of the suit that has to fit just right.
I wanted it very real.
Now, we only have one shot of landing on this rock.
So realistically,
that's precisely when the asteroid passes by the moon.
How do you land on an asteroid? Well, first you have to catch it. Former astronaut and physicist Joe Allen helped figure out a plausible plan.
Keep in mind the asteroid might be traveling 25,000 miles an hour, much faster than a speeding bullet.
You'll then use lunar gravity.
The filmmakers used quite a clever invention, which is to use another object to swing around as a person might crack the whip and change one's direction that way, using both the gravity of the other object, in the film it's the moon that's used, and augment that or kick it with additional rockets that you've carried along.
You'll be moving at 22,500 miles per hour, coming around behind the asteroid, where we're hoping that the tail debris will be cleared by the moon's gravity.
It's the physics of Sir Isaac Newton and Johannes Kepler.
The physics may be real, but one locale is wholly imaginary: the landscape of an asteroid.
This place is like Dr. Seuss's worst nightmare.
The roughnecks must fight fury face on. Cosmic hurricanes, quakes, and eruptions.
I don't think this thing likes us.
Anything is possible, because no one has ever seen the surface of an asteroid. Until now. This is a Doppler radar picture of a 3-mile-wide asteroid, Doomsday Big, seen for the first time.
It's almost as if we've sent a spacecraft there. The spacecraft was the Earth, and the instrument was the Goldstone radar telescope.
This space mountain will cross our orbit. But sleep easy, Earth is not a target. We've got our eye on this global killer.
For just a few $1 million a year, we could find out if there's anything headed toward us that's really dangerous during the next century. It probably should be thought of as the most serious environmental hazard that faces humanity.
This is the only natural catastrophe we can avoid. We don't know any way to stop an earthquake from happening, but if an asteroid were found headed for us, we could deflect it and save the planet.
I think the Apollo era showed us that if we set a goal technologically, we can make incredible advancements.
We're real problem solvers, and I hope we never lose that can-do American attitude, and that's what NASA is.
If I can stand here and tell you that I lived on the moon, that I called the moon my home for 3 days, you tell me what is impossible. Nothing is impossible.
The Doomsday Asteroid, fact or fiction? There is one out there, a space boulder thousands of times more powerful than the one that caused this damage in the Arizona desert.
Armageddon has happened before. It will happen again, unless we have the vision and the heroes to save our planet.
So, it's a
Asking for some money.
Mayhem.
Good to go? Let's get set to go.
God damn it! What do you think this is? You just blew up an $8 billion fucking rocket ship!
It's like sitting in the front seat of a roller coaster that's on fire at 100 miles an hour and you're running out of track.
We have a director that's out of control!
Major. So it makes The Rock look like My Dinner with Andre.
Go with throttle up.
The throttle up call acknowledged.
Whoa! Oh my God, am I glad to be off of that set or what? Oh, they told me this was gonna be fun, this movie.
Are you suggesting that we blow this thing up from the inside?
How?
I reckon we drill.
We bring in Bruce Willis, the best deep core driller in my ass.
Last week it was, they had the spaceship up there, they're rocking it back and forth, there's all these flames, there's ice pelting it, everything's shaking, Michael Bay's screaming, everybody's screaming, he's like, cut, this is so boring.
Cut, please. What is this? What are we, statues? Is this a garden? What is this? I don't understand what are you people doing standing around? Are you in the movie, sir?
You need a high-resolution image. Why the fuck me naked with a spoon?
Doing, get this fucking thing.
Roll! Turn the camera on, for God's sake. Okay, take one.
How's the Armageddon? You blow up any? We blew up one.
Take 3.
That's it.
Well, you know that was good. I love that.
I will kick some fucking asteroid ass. Let me explain. Oh, we can't say fucking this movie, can we? You motherfucker! Fuck!
I pray to fucking God that they can come home to some fucking where.
Son of a fucking whore from hell!
In a few seconds, I'm gonna come out there and I'm gonna knock the fuck out of you, man.
I will kick some goddamn asteroid ass. Way wrong answer!
Bruce Willis is doing an astronaut thing. He's blowing things up.
Get Bluey!
he's squinting his eyes, he's doing things, he's looking really wonderful. Don't be afraid of him, okay? None of you.
They can say what they think. They don't know, but we think he's with the Russian.
Yeah, he's with the Russian.
And then somebody else says he's with Sharp. And your thrust, Will, should be, it's on fire. I don't know where he is. I couldn't see him. The whole goddamn thing's coming apart. And then say, you gotta fake it for a line. Yeah. You gotta wait. I'll give you a wave. They're just sliding in. All right. Really, the shot starts to end when Will hits the deck.
And you guys need to be
Love
behind.
when you talk like a director.
What?
That'll be cool, and then we'll be at it.
What we do here on Armageddon, we try to raise money by bringing kids in. We charge an admission, and that's how we keep funding.
And then they get to ride.
They get to ride it. Yeah. And then we tell them, get out of here. All right, time's up. Let's go. Next one.
Here's working with Michael Bay.
It definitely leaves you kind of spinning. I mean, even as he's saying rolling or action before rolling, you're like, what?
What are you doing?
Of course, he's that guy that plays with his pecker all the time.
You experience, premature ejaculation.
I wish I'd fucked my Cocker Spaniel just one more time.
I did.
We'll have to keep him from doing that to get it done, I reckon.
We're just the horny hop toads. And if I see you two rubbing each other's shoulders again, you are out of the movie. You understand me? This kind of story gets out and we're all fucked.
There for a while, I was kind of hoping that maybe they wouldn't make it back and we'd have a few hours. You know what I'm saying? Tell you what, if you'll look down and to the left a little bit, I'll show you an asteroid. I got an asteroid in my pants that you can't believe.
Woo!
The fate of the planet is in the hands of a bunch of retards I wouldn't trust with a potato gun.
Oh, what are you bitching about, little girl? I can't help it that your dad was a fucking idiot to go up in space. He can't drive a spaceship.
He did the best he could do.
Oh, you shut the fuck up, Clark.
It's been a nightmare when it comes to the spacesuits.
All crew members, close and lock your visors.
Lower it down. You're choking them.
My helmet's stuck! Oh, I need help.
Chick, there's something wrong up the hole.
Everything's cool with everybody? Yeah. Let's do it. Okay.
Just a
What's wrong with this picture?
Yo, Houston, what's going on?
Maybe he was the wrong choice for this mission.
IMCA. You can get your duck stick.
These guys that are shooting this film and the crew on this, I've never had a better time. One other time. But it's just as good as that time.
I need to be held sometime, okay? Nobody understands that.
Yeah, that'll be in the movie. I can see that. I can see it.
Excuse me. We've spent a lot of money on this joke. Can we make a little change here?
Yeah, you know, we got Bruce to do this picture, but Costner is now available. I think now's the time to make the change.
Let's go for it.
It's never too late.
Let's go for it.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Joe.
A production designer creates the world within which the film is shot. When you read a book, you imagine a place, a room, a forest, clouds, seas, boats, cars, whatever. You create a vision of the world that the book or the character is placed in. I have to bring that vision to life. I have to create that world, be it a set, be it a location, be it a visual effects shot. The designing of that and then ultimate creation of that is what I do. This script was a daunting script. It's a big, epic scope picture, and it was frightening when you first read the script. You think, how am I ever going to bring this to life? We're in multiple spacecraft docking at space stations, flying to asteroids through thousands of miles of space. We're landing on asteroids. We're crashing on asteroids. We're saving the world. I mean, it's a process. you let your mind wander in the beginning and put down on paper illustrations, anything, and then you break that down. And is that possible? Could we create that? How do we bring that that vision to the screen? Is that something practical? Do we really build that in full scale, or is that done through visual effects? Because of the design of our spaceships and space shuttles, and the fact that and it's in the future slightly, we've kind of updated everything. The wardrobe, the spacesuits in particular that go into that, really need to integrate 100%. So there's been integration from the beginning there, absolutely. Colors, kinds of technologies used, the basic look or vibe needs to integrate. In designing NASA as just an overall thing for the movie, first of all, we got the full support of NASA, which was critical to the way we could make our film. When we started the project, we had to start it without that knowledge. How could we recreate these worlds and never get NASA's cooperation? Once we got their cooperation, the scope of the picture really opened up. It put the onus on me to make sure that any sets that we design and any spacecraft that we design, particularly with the set Mission Control, that it integrates to NASA's looks, if you will. So we took artistic license with Mission Control. It's much more stylistic, it's much more aesthetic, but we made sure that technologically it was actually fairly accurate. It's pretty on the mark. We worked with 2 or 3 NASA consultants who, once we got their permission, came on our film. And you would go throughout our set from console to console, from screen to screen, and find information much like you would find in the real NASA Mission Control. It just happens to look better. It's more interesting, it's more stylistic. The armadillo needed to have a character. It needed to have its own personality. It is another actor in the film. We see it a lot. There are a pair of them in our film, and they're instrumental in saving the day, if you will. We were inspired by everything from heavy earth-moving equipment to Mars landers to the latest Mars lander, the little tiny guy. But how do you also make this thing kind of the monster truck of spacecraft or of lunar landers, if you will? So the scale got large, the wheels got many, and the color and designs became very stylized. We've been privileged to go aboard several shuttles, and they're tiny. Their crews are absolutely sardined in them. We needed to create room for actors to act, for scenes to occur, but still make it believable. The coloration changed instantly. Everything's dark and moody and stylized, which is hopefully my trademark, certainly Michael Bay's trademark. But I think giving it a size and scale that is useful was the key issue. When you read the script, you have a blank canvas. The asteroid can be anything you want it to be. Again, it's the force of evil in our film. It is the thing that is going to take away life as we know it on Earth. So when we land on this asteroid, I mean, it has to reflect that personality. We went through a lot of different designs to come up with the shape of the rock, the sort of razor-like, barb-like rock formations, the overhangs, the peril that this asteroid feels like anywhere you are on it. And we've now built a set, a very large set, where we're doing all the live action work. And we've also designed the asteroid in its entirety and various visual effects scales of the asteroid. It's behind me. I think it says what it needs to say. It took 3 months to build this set, and that's with over 150 guys a day on this project in this soundstage. But we decided once we rented this stage and started designing for this stage specifically, we have X number of square feet, the asteroid set must fit in it, that it wasn't big enough. We couldn't get any bigger sound stages. We checked into airplane hangars, we checked into distant locations, and we decided that we would make the stage bigger. We've excavated 20 feet below the stage level. We've created a pit, if you will, giving us now 65 feet of headroom in this stage versus the original 45. That was expensive. But I think it design-wise, opened up more opportunities. And ultimately, even though it was expensive, I think has some major cost savings. This set, we can shoot most of this sequence and most of this movie live action. There's many vantage points, many levels you can shoot from, many little caverns and points of view. And it seems like 4 or 5 different worlds when it's relit and relensed. And that was critical in the design. I think there's satisfaction in every step. I mean, I don't think you can say that one step is my favorite or is the best step. The design process takes you off in every direction under the sun. There's fun and exploration. That's exciting. But you need to be responsible financially and to the script and to your director and focus. That focusing process is also a process that is incredibly satisfying, as you can see it come alive in your head. This is what the picture will be. Then it goes down on paper by illustrations and blueprints and handed off to carpenters. So it's another step, another stage. As it's being built, there it is. What you thought about some 6 months earlier is actually happening in 3 dimension in front of you. That's another level of satisfaction.
With any visual effect, in order to facilitate this, our engineering department, with Joe Hagee and Fred Iguchi, we built a computer system that would control up to 96 relays via computer. So we could take the timings from the digital animatic and load that into the computer here, and it in turn would fire each ring of the concentric circles of the explosion. In order to produce a large explosion like that, we found Hansen Dam to be the most suitable place. Here we built a large tabletop of earth. Using large machine graders, we would actually grade the area to be at an 8-degree slant so we could look over top of the Hansen Dam toward the natural sky. It took only a day and a half to go from ground earth to building a tabletop. Once the earth was flattened, we used large steel plates. These are 8 feet by 20 feet, weighing several tons apiece, and laid them and field welded them into position. This was necessary so we could produce a nice hit for the rings to go off of. This is important to produce the actual effect of the explosion coming skyward. Here you can see the concentric rings being laid down. Each one is a piece of explosive cord that is taped and glued into position. There are 80 of these going out to several hundred feet in length. Once we had this completed, we then began wiring up the detonators. The detonators were required to explode the primer cord, but not actually be seen on camera. These have to be specially made and hand done. Safety, again, was a big issue. Here we're using the general materials. It's sand, about 14 inches of sand placed on top of the primer cord, as well as mulch and a little bit of Fuller's earth for texture. This was kind of experimented to figure out the right heights and thickness to produce the size of the wall of earth as we needed. Here you can see them connecting up each one of the rings through a laced cable, and this cable then terminates down toward the computer ending. We had a large fiery explosion at the beginning, which was done with aluminum powder jettisoned from those canisters. This is required to produce a large flash of light that you see in the film. Here inside the steel bunkers where the housing of the computer is, and again, Richie Helmer, who is head of the pyrotechnic group, actually works on working with our engineer in producing the sequence. Again, there's 5,000ths of a second interval between each one, which appears at real time as one continuous explosion. With some tests, we continued working. We had a crew in France waiting to shoot the plate, but again, because of time, we had to shoot the background before we shot the live action. This required users compass headings and clocks to be able to figure what time of day to shoot so that the 2 pieces of film would match. Building an armored bunker, we put the high-speed photosonic 4E cameras in and waited for the right weather. A little bit of testing to make sure everything was working right, and this was something that we again used high-speed video to analyze because most of the events went off so fast you really couldn't see them in real time. Once we got the shot set up and everything was green lit, we waited for weather. This is what the shot looked like in real time. It took place in 0.4 seconds. From the side, slowed down 5 times, you can see it race toward the camera position. But on screen, what it produces is an amazing effect. It looks like a giant wave about 1,500 feet to 2,000 feet high coming at the camera in 15 seconds. Therefore, we produced the initial part of the elements required to produce destruction of Paris. The idea of gargoyles was something that Michael Bay really liked. So our art department drew up a bunch of gargoyles and then with some selected began sculpting them out of gator foam. This was a hand-done process. Most of these did not have to break away except for one, and that one was cast out of a vermiculite material and cabasol that would break apart on cue. Here you can see them painting and detailing. We've essentially built a whole upper set piece that would be shot in VistaVision as a foreground blue screen element. Great detail was made in terms of aging to make it match and look like the real thing. They were made as breakaway pieces so that air cannons and some pyrotechnics could be used to blow them apart on cue. Here, rehearsing with video assist, we're able to actually have things like earthquakes and rocks, and you can see the idea of these pieces being broken. It took us several days of work to get the effect, and it's quite messy, as you can see when it fires. We shoot all kinds of material, cork and dust and dirt. It makes a real mess of the stage, but it produces a very interesting visual effect as the wave actually reaches the camera position and destroys it. Here you can see in real time what the effect looked like as it blows the gargoyle apart. Using aerial photos and satellite photos, Chris Keene started building an actual block feel of the buildings that we would eventually see shot from the Eiffel Tower. Even though we shot from the Eiffel Tower, the illusion was that we were somewhere else high above the Paris background, and we'd later put in the Eiffel Tower as a CG element. Using the block diagrams and shapes made in Maya, we then projected the footage that we shot from our plate crew in France onto those shapes. Those shapes were then used with particle technology and dynamics to tear apart to create the dynamic effect of the buildings actually imploding. We took a virtual cylinder, and by passing that through the plane of the buildings, we're able to give the illusion that the wave is actually coming out and breaking. You can see here in the lower frame that the bits and pieces of the buildings are being broken up into particle pieces as the wave comes toward the camera. This is a digital trick that helped make the illusion look real. Very special buildings built by Adolf was something that we put in too, such as the Eiffel Tower and certain prime buildings in the Parisian horizon. This is necessary to be able to have ultimate control over the shapes, and also to assure that the audience at a very quick glimpse would know that we're actually looking at France. Again, these CG buildings were built to fall apart and come in sync with the actual wave as it came toward the camera. Here you can see the pieces break apart and the thing fall over as a separate element. When combined with the compositing techniques, it looks quite real. Blaine Kennison, head of our compositing team, took the 50 some odd elements and in about a week and a half put them together on film. The digital asteroid with its trail, the interactive lights on the clouds and on the horizon were intricate and very necessary to give the illusion of reality. By putting in some pigeons on blue screen and by putting the camera move in, we got a very realistic looking shot of a large 2,000-foot wave of Earth coming in and destroying the camera. Here again you can see the basic parts, starting with the Eiffel Tower. That was combined with other buildings that break up through particle technology as you take the maps and break them into pieces. The actual wave front, the skirt of destruction as it comes toward the camera. And then when composited, it gives a very interesting and kind of realistic shot of what it might look like if a giant asteroid came in and hit the horizon of a Paris skyline.
Hi, I'm Richard Hoover, Visual Effects Supervisor at DreamQuest Images. Our primary task on Armageddon was to make the villain of the movie. Very interesting task in that it's an inanimate object. It's a piece of rock. We asked ourselves, what would we have to do to make it a villain? What characteristics would it need? And it all started with this napkin drawing that was actually glued together with several napkins that kept getting bigger and bigger as it got sketched out. From this image, we created the asteroid as we know it in the film by working in Photoshop, painting with colors and textures. We made it spiky so it looked mean and sharp, like if you were thrown at you, it would impale you. We gave it atmosphere so it had clouds and gases and made it colorful. Actually, the colors were based on a Hubble telescope photograph. We made it have turbulence so that the atmosphere you see in the back of the smoke is spinning and exploding and spitting and throwing rocks and debris at you, so that when Bruce Willis made this journey into this asteroid with his band of men, it was something that was unpredictable, volatile. It was a very serious obstacle for them to make it. Many images were drawn at DreamQuest by our art department, figuring out what angles would be dynamic, how close the camera should get, what really made the texture come to life on the screen. We played with the audience as far as scale goes, how big it was, by this shot showing one rock flying in and then several, and then this enormous asteroid coming over camera. It's not typical in that it's not a potato, which is what an asteroid really looks like. This became something that was rotating and spinning, could even fly, that as a still it looked like it was moving. I took cameras and shoved them inside it to see what it would look like to be inside this maquette. The maquette was created by carving a very dense foam. First of all, applying the napkin sketch and the Photoshop rendering to a small piece of foam about 2 feet long and very, very detailed. From that, we cut it up into pieces and photographed the pieces and projected them onto even larger pieces of foam. In the idea of making a version of this that was about 25 feet long and 12 feet in diameter, that had infinite amount of detail so the camera could be very far away and fly right into it and it would still hold up as reality. It took many artists, many weeks of painstaking carving and painting and building to put this all together. And it was entirely mounted on one single 4-inch by 4-inch piece of steel tubing. They had a rotator inside it so it could spin, and that was photographed on a motion control stage, with the camera getting extremely close to every little crevice and orifice, which the front of it was a little icier and colder and more volatile. The sequence itself, relying on the idea that we're using the computer to plan everything, went back to the model stage to build an even larger scale version of the asteroid surface. We had to keep sort of blowing up parts of it and making it bigger and bigger and bigger. The ultimate tunnel, if you will, where the shuttles flip over each other, narrowly missing each other, was 80 feet long and 25 feet wide, about 15 feet tall. The camera is hanging from the ceiling from a gantry system, which allows us to build the model landscape all over the floor because the camera is only in the ceiling. This is a good example of how we showed the asteroid in the early part of the movie. There had to be this ticking clock where the asteroid was getting closer and closer to the Earth. And we wanted multiple views of the asteroid that were just a little different each time. Once all the models were constructed and painted and built out, we photographed them on the stage. And we also put an infinite number of little tiny front projection discs all over the surfaces of them and surveyed them so that the computer would know exactly where all the surfaces were and all the crevices were. When it was loaded into the computer, then the artist would know three-dimensionally where every little nook and cranny was so that they could plan out where the rocks were flowing out of it, where the gases had to fit. We wrote proprietary software for the gases themselves. We wanted them, or the gas that is, to flow around the surfaces, to be aware of where the shuttles were, where every pinnacle was. If we wanted it to spew out of a certain crevice, it would actually know where it was in 3D space. It was all in an attempt to reinforce the idea that this was a very volatile place. It's beautiful to look at, it has great colors, the movement of the gas is wonderful, yet you really didn't know what was going to happen next. You'll see the elements building upon themselves from the model photography of the asteroid to the multiple gas layers, rock layers, ice layers, earth, and star fields. I mean, it starts with the idea that they're going to slingshot around the moon and gain velocity by doing that, because this asteroid is going 23,000 miles at Earth, which is kind of a difficult thing for us to imagine how fast that is. Michael and I spent endless hours talking about what kind of emotion we wanted the viewer to feel in this. This was really a dynamic roller coaster ride that he wanted the audience to be right in it, feeling every part of it, every jolt, every hit by a rock, feeling the danger and the emotion of that sequence. Each frame was meticulously choreographed with where the rocks would be, how close the shuttles would be, what their interaction would be, what the relationship would be between the Independence and the Freedom, how close they were to each other, what kind of things that they were experiencing. I know that from watching audiences, sometimes you lose track of which one you were in. And that was almost a good thing, because the idea was that you were in the middle of it and everything was going crazy. If you were in that situation, it was very difficult to keep track of where your partner was and what was going on with them. The ride itself, as we called it, we wanted this to be a roller coaster ride. The explosions on the moon were actually an old, like, Civil War cannonball dropped into a bucket of Fuller's Earth. Every shot, I must have done maybe 100 different animatics on each shot so that the camera was at the most ideal place, so that the choreography was the most dynamic it could be, so it put the viewer right in the middle of it. The tension between the two shuttles, between what they were dealing with, Michael and I spent endless hours talking about and placing specific rocks that would flow right by the camera, would scrape narrowly by the shuttles, that small ones would hit them and explode. If you look at this disc several times, you'll probably, on one time through, look at the upper right corner. Next time through, look at the lower left corner. You'll see things that you probably never noticed before. There's so many layers of digital imagery in each one of these scenes, it'd be very difficult for you to see it all in the first time. Model photography on green screen needs a matte, so you see the green go to black, which allows us to isolate the asteroid itself or the shuttle itself and matte it over something else. In any scene, there are multiple layers of things, from foreground to midground to background, but in each of these scenes there may be 50 to 100 different layers of film. A lot of the shuttles we rendered as digital shuttles and not model. That allowed, again, the gas to know exactly where they were. So when it was flying through the gas, it would interact and flow over the shuttles, or it would flow around a rock form and then the shuttles would go through it. It also created a sense of turbulence. We could control how the gases spun or behaved because a rock went through them or the shuttles went through them, what have you. You have to look at each one of these and understand that every rock was individually animated. You can see some of the rocks have striations of gas attached to them. Those were tracked in the computer and meticulously animated one by one. We played with colors. We found that the blue-green look, if it were just blue-green, almost made us look like we were underwater. It was too much. So we kept backing off on the amount of atmosphere so it wouldn't get too muddy. It still had deep blacks and a rich look. But we meticulously made each layer interact with the shuttle somewhere. So as you're watching the sequence, watch the shuttles go through the gas and you'll see them make the gas move or become turbulent once they pass through. There are also we only had about enough time to render it once. And Jim came up with the most dynamic particle shot I've ever seen. He made strands and striations of different colored gas spewing and exploding, all mixing among itself, and we flew right through it. And the first time we saw it on the screen, we just went bananas.
The space station was designed partly based on the real one, but really there was a bit more added to it to facilitate the story. And that was a model that was about probably 8 feet long that was built by Alan Fauché, who was our head model guy. We had various scales because at one point there was an accident, a release of liquid oxygen into the station, and it's a panic to get out, and it's set off. It explodes, basically. So the mirror is literally exploding from one end to the next as the guys try to get out. And so we had larger scale models that we blew up. We really just hung them in our parking lot in front of our building, looking up to get that sort of zero-G effect, and blew them up right in our parking lot at night. And what we do is then we put stars in the earth and so forth behind later, and shuttles and that type of thing. And we add a lot of extra debris flying towards camera. Years ago, this film couldn't be made with I think, conventional effects. It could be, but it wouldn't be anywhere near have the impact that it will now, because the advent of really the computer. I mean, we could have done it a few years ago with the opticals, but it wouldn't have been quite as impressive. And the computer has opened up a whole new area to directors to explore these type of storylines. These scripts have been around for years and years and years, but they were put on the shelf because they were deemed impossible to do. And all of a sudden, you can do this type of stuff, so it sort of opens a whole new door. And they're pivotal in this film. Without it, they wouldn't have made this film without these type of visual effects. So, but ultimately, a visual effect is just another shot in a movie, and it has to be looked at that way. When they're shooting a person talking to another person, whatever shots that you shot get cut into the film, and then the next cut may be a visual effect shot, but it has to be looked at as just literally another shot at some point, because it's you can't do a film that's just based on visual effects and hope a lot of people are going to come to see it, because it has to always have a story, and always has to have a good character development, great actors, and of course a great director to bring it all together. The shuttles that we have are actually supposedly the next generation shuttle that NASA has under wraps that are just happen to be ready to go. And this was designed by Michael White and Michael Bay working together. So we have this very sleek, very cool looking shuttle. So for a lot of the what we call motion control or the computer controlled camera shots where we see these things flying around, we have 20th scale, which is about 5 feet long. We have 12th scale, which is about 10 feet long for crashes and where the shuttle has to hit debris, and then we have a quarter scale, which is about, I think it's 38 feet or so. The large quarter scale was used for, there's a door that opens at the bottom to see people coming out, and we took it to NASA and had it on the runway where the shuttle lands. We had it sort of sitting out there as a perspective shot. Looks like it's a little further away than it really is, because it's a quarter the full size. The shuttle itself is bigger than the real shuttle. That's what we're calling ours, a little bit bigger than the real one. And one of the reasons is that NASA allowed us to place Panavision cameras on the gantry where NASA actually has its cameras. So we put our cameras, they allowed us to put our widescreen cameras in there and photograph a shuttle launch at night, which was fabulous footage, and it was really nobody's ever done this before, so NASA was incredibly gracious to allow us to do this. So we had cameras all over in the vehicle assembly building, 4 or 5 miles away, in the sort of infill in the grassy area right below the launch pad, and then on the launch pad. So then what we did later, obviously that we had to put our shuttles on the real shuttles on the booster, I guess you'd say the back of the booster. So we shot our 20th scale models and composited them over the real shuttle. So when you see the launch, it's the shuttles that Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck are riding in or strapped aboard the real boosters. So no one's done that before. That's something new. A visual effects supervisor, when they come to the show, they work with the director. And what normally the process is the director will, of course, get a script and then get a storyboard artist. This is the pre-production before you shoot. and go through the entire script and work with the board artist to storyboard all the sequences. And generally what happens is as you refine the boards, you get obviously to shots that you go, can we do this on the set, or is this impossible? And sometimes, obviously a space shuttle flying through space has to be a visual effects shot. And then some other types of shots, physical shots where, let's say cars are flipping or buildings are exploding, you'll say, well, I think this is special effects, which are on the set, which are different from visual effects. Visual effects are all the things that you can't do in the set. So we'll sit down and say, I think, I'll work with a special effects guy and say, I think this is your area to blow up cars or rip buses in half or flip, people over. And then let's say once we have to tilt up with a vehicle or whatever going into space, that's going to be a visual effect. The sort of hype with computers, I think there's a lot of sort of misunderstanding about what they're used for. In the old days, we used to put shots together optically. And it was a very laborious, very difficult process. And if it was done well, you really couldn't see much of the classic telltale little black or green line around somebody. If it wasn't done well, you get a huge line or whatever. But now all film is, for visual effects, is scanned into the computer. And the computer, we can put it together, put somebody against a background, and you really can't tell if the person on the machine is good. You can get rid of what we call matte lines and make this a really integrated image where you can't tell what's back there. So virtually all our shots go through the computer at some point for this process, either to be put together. Sometimes we'll put an explosion of debris in front of somebody, that type of thing. Oh, Michael's great. Michael is, I worked with a lot of directors before, and a lot of them have more of a concept in their head and not an image. And it's difficult to sort of get into the director's head and figure out what this sort of feeling towards a shot is, and Michael has a very distinct image in his mind, and he can describe it. He can describe the lighting, the moves, and so forth. So when we show him something on film as just a test, he can get us going in the right direction in a big hurry, and a lot of directors, it's very difficult for them to sort of imagine what the shot's going to look like at the end of the day, at the very end of the final composition, because it's difficult. It is very difficult for a director to sit there and look at pieces. Let's say a space shuttle flying in a station and an Earth, and we shoot everything separately, and it really doesn't come together till the very end. And that's where sometimes the director will change their mind when we're way down the line. So Michael is actually he's a very definitive image and feeling, and his sense of lighting is very defined in this movie. The shuttles that we have are actually supposedly the next generation shuttle that NASA has under wraps that are just happen to be ready to go. And this was designed by Michael White and Michael Bay working together. So we have this very sleek, very cool looking shuttle. So for a lot of the what we call motion control or the computer control camera shots where we see these things flying around, we have 20th scale, which is about 5 feet long. We have 12th scale, which is about 10 feet long for crashes and where the shuttle has to hit debris. And then we have a quarter scale, which is about, I think it's 38 feet or so. The large quarter scale was used for, there's a door that opens at the bottom to see people coming out, and we took it to NASA and had it on the runway where the shuttle lands. We had it sort of sitting out there as a perspective shot. Looks like it's a little further away than it really is because it's a quarter the full size. The shuttle itself is bigger than the real shuttle. That's what we're calling ours, a little bit bigger than the real one. And one of the reasons is that NASA allowed us to place Panavision cameras on the gantry where NASA actually has its cameras. So we put our cameras, they allowed us to put our widescreen cameras in there and photograph a shuttle launch at night, which was fabulous footage, and it was really, nobody's ever done this before, so NASA was incredibly gracious to allow us to do this. So we had cameras all over in the vehicle assembly building, 4 or 5 miles away, in the sort of infill in the grassy area right below the launch pad, and then on the launch pad. So then what we did later, obviously that we had to put our shuttles on the real shuttles on the booster, I guess you'd say the back of the booster. So we shot our 20th scale models and composited them over the real shuttle. So when you see the launch, it's the shuttles that Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck are riding in or strapped aboard the real boosters. So no one's done that before. That's something new. The space station was designed partly based on the real one, but really there was a bit more added to it to facilitate the story. And that was a model that was about probably 8 feet long that was built by Alan Fauché, who's our head model guy. We had various scales because at one point there was an accident, a release of liquid oxygen into the station, and it's a panic to get out, and it's set off. It explodes, basically. So the mirror is literally exploding from one end to the next as the guys try to get out. And so we had larger scale models that we blew up. We really just hung them in our parking lot in front of our building, looking up to get that sort of zero-G effect, and blew them up right in our parking lot at night. And what we do is then we put stars in the earth and so forth behind later, and shuttles and that type of thing. And we add a lot of extra debris flying towards camera. Years ago, this film couldn't be made with I think, conventional effects. It could be, but it wouldn't be anywhere near have the impact that it will now, because the advent of really the computer. I mean, we could have done it a few years ago with the opticals, but it wouldn't have been quite as impressive. And the computer has opened up a whole new area to directors to explore these type of storylines. These scripts have been around for years and years and years, but they were put on the shelf because they were deemed impossible to do. And all of a sudden, you can do this type of stuff, so it sort of opens a whole new door. And they're pivotal in this film. Without it, they wouldn't have made this film without these type of visual effects. So. But ultimately, a visual effect is just another shot in a movie, and it has to be looked at that way. When they're shooting a person talking to another person, whatever shots that you shot get cut into the film, and then the next cut may be a visual effect shot, but it has to be looked at as just literally another shot at some point, because it's you can't do a film that's just based on visual effects and hope a lot of people are going to come to see it, because it has to always have a story, and always has to have a good character development, great actors, and of course a great director to bring it all together.